palaces to oppose the motion.
Thank you very much for having me this afternoon. Yes, I'm Chief Curator at Historic Royal Palaces. This is the independent charity which looks after the 5 unoccupied royal palaces of London. These include the Tower of London, where we look after the instruments of torture, and the ravens, and of course the crown jewels. And sometimes people ask me, what goes on in the jewel house late at night after all of our visitors have gone home? Well, here is your answer. We also look after Kew Palace and Hampton Court and the Banqueting House in Whitehall and Kensington Palace, and just like the National Trust, we get no money from the government or the royal family, and we deserve your financial support. Unlike you, though, we've only been a charity for 12 years. We are the new kids on the block, despite having a lot in common with you. And unlike you, we have no kind of endowment. We rely almost totally on our ticket sales to carry out our conservation and education work. As a result of this, I think we've had to make some more extreme and more theatrical efforts to bring our properties to life than the National Trust has traditionally done. Out of financial necessity, yes, but also out of a sense of showmanship and storytelling and sharing that lies right at the heart of our organisation. I think the first and biggest question we have to ask is, what makes a visit enjoyable? And I really want to argue to you this afternoon that the answer to that question depends on who you're talking to. And, dear members of the National Trust, for the future of our heritage, we can't afford to cater only to well-educated, historically aware, sophisticated people like you. Your support is vital, but it isn't enough for us to preach only to the converted. For our very future survival, we need to reach out to people who just aren't interested in history. We've invested a lot of time and effort at Historic Royal Palaces into developing a model of our audiences. The National Trust has one that's quite similar. And we've identified that some people would visit us almost whatever we did. Hampton Court, in particular, has been well visited by a group that we call culture families. Culture families have kids doing a project on Henry VIII at school. They're keen to learn new stuff about history. Our research tells us that these are the things culture families like. Thank you. They like Kevin MacLeod, they like Waitrose, they like sushi, they like the Eden Project. But this is also a reminder of the competition that we're up against as heritage organisations for the time and money even of our natural supporters. Having said that, culture families have been visiting us happily at Hampton Court for many years in large numbers. On the other hand, we've identified a group who don't come. We call them leisure families. Enjoyment is their priority, and this is the competition for their attention. They like Tesco's and Gordon Ramsay and Pizza Hut. Now, we decided at Hampton Court that our challenge was to try to get them interested in history as well. And for me, that's not only a challenge commercially, it's a challenge morally. These people deserve our attention, our resources. What we do for them is different, but it doesn't mean that it's worthless. I don't feel my job will be done until history is as popular as the X Factor is. Let me demonstrate how Hampton Court has changed in order to try to reach out to these people. This is the old entrance court at Hampton Court, and even though there were no keep off the grass signs, people used to be afraid to walk on the grass. Now, you see, it is as it was in Tudor times, a paved, much more flexible space for kids to run about, and its centrepiece is a recreation based on immense amounts of scholarly research of Henry VIII's wine fountain. I love this. The visitors can climb on it, they can have their picture taken with it, and it really works. You can get a glass of red or white wine out of those taps. It costs a very reasonable £3.50 a glass. We now also offer a velvet Tudor cloak for every visitor. It's not compulsory, but if you do take a cloak, you become a member of the Tudor court. It becomes an immersive experience. Even if you don't like dressing up yourself, that's not the question. The question is, does your little nephew Johnny like dressing up? Cloaks up, you enter the Great Hall. Before and after, now people sit down at the tables and they read the tablecloths, which are printed with information about the room. Let me show you a contrasting approach. We've identified another group that we call cool rejectors. Cool rejectors are young people aged between 15 and 30. They would never normally visit a royal palace because they're too cool. And this is a project that we've done for them. Kensington is a palace that was home to a string of royal women whose lives contained an element of vulnerability or tragedy. At the moment, because of building work, we've had to take the paintings out. And so, instead, we took the opportunity to have the Enchanted Palace. It's an installation, if you like, that combines contemporary fashion and theatre. These glass bottles, for example, contain the tears of unhappy princesses. Princess Victoria, one of them, lived at Kensington until she became queen at the age of 18. She had a melancholy childhood at this palace. She lived her life under constant 24-hour surveillance. So here, the trendy young designer, William Tempest, very cool himself, has made a dress for Princess Victoria to wear as she dreams of freedom. Now, we've had a whole new audience coming in to see this show, an amazing media attention. But I think it's only fair to admit that some of our more regular visitors haven't liked it. I've had more letters, both raving passionately in favour and also ranting against this project than any other that I've worked on in my career. And we've learnt during the course of this how important it is to prepare people for what they're going to see. We now have a warning at the entrance. This may just blow your mind. But it has been challenging, and I don't think you can call that dumbing down. We've really embraced this idea of bringing properties to life wholeheartedly at historic royal palaces. To do it properly is difficult. It takes years of historical research, masses of money, and perhaps most important of all, agreement needs to be built across the entire organisation, from the curators to the interpreters to the marketing department and vitally to the volunteers as well. Everybody needs to rally behind the same single strong story. I don't think you can just tinker around the edges if you want to create a visit that's moving, memorable and transformative. Because we're quite small and independent, we can dare to experiment. I don't think we've always got it right, but I do think we've been right to try. It would be deeply unfair to call this dumbing down. Thank you.